Next on CBS 4 News tonight, Hurricane Katrina, a Category 5, hours from slamming into the New Orleans area. CBS 4's Brian Andrews is there. We'll have an update.
And Brian Norcross here in Weather Control, along with David Bernard. We'll have full analysis of the storm and what it means to New Orleans. That's coming up here in just about 3 minutes.
And the storm's effects are already being felt along the Gulf Coast.
The race to get out of town turned into a crawl for some people trying to escape the storm.
Here at home, life is beginning to get back to normal for Katrina's local victims.
Plus, the MTV VMAs rocked the American Airlines Arena. We've got team coverage of the white carpet arrivals and the big show. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jawan Strader.
And I'm Ileana Barilla. CBS 4 News starts right now.
You're watching a special edition of CBS 4 News, tracking Hurricane Katrina.
On Hurricane Katrina as a dangerous Category 5 storm heads towards New Orleans.
Earlier today, some routes out of New Orleans looking more like parking lots as residents scramble to get out.
Others, however, are staying in the Big Easy and hunkering down at the New Orleans Superdome. Katrina could prove to be the storm of the century when it comes ashore tomorrow morning.
That's right. Tonight, those who chose to stay in New Orleans are bracing and praying for the best. Live pictures here from New Orleans where the winds are slowly picking up. CBS 4's Brian Andrews is in New Orleans with the latest.
Hello from inside the ballroom at the downtown New Orleans Sheraton, where hundreds of people will be spending the night riding out this monster storm, which is going to make a grand entrance around 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, depending on what the weather guys are telling us. Let's meet some of the people who are weathering this storm. Hi there, ma'am. What's your name?
Shirley.
And where are you from?
New Orleans.
New Orleans? And I see you brought your little one?
My twins.
Your twins.
My big 8-year-old over there.
So what do you make of this?
Just trying to hope for the best.
Hope for the best? Have you ever been through a hurricane before?
Nope, this is going to be my first time.
All right. Well, you're here with your family, right?
Yep.
You'll ride it out together?
Yep.
That's all the best thing. Family with family.
Yep.
All right. Well, good luck to you.
All right, thanks.
That's just one of the many stories in this room tonight. Let's see where this guy's from. Where are you visiting from?
Right here.
You're from New Orleans as well?
Yeah, from here.
You ever been through a Category 5 storm?
No, I don't think too many people have been through one like this.
So what do you make of all of this?
It's great. High and dry, good safe place to be.
So if the power goes out, not a big deal?
As long as we're all safe, it's okay.
Did you prepare your home before you left?
Yeah, as much as I could. Absolutely.
You riding out by yourself? Or
Yep.
By yourself?
All by myself.
Grab your blankets from upstairs?
Nice and comfortable. Can't ask for more.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, there you have it, a sampling of some of the people who will be riding out this storm. Again, the worst of it coming through in the middle of the night. They're telling people to get to a safe place. And this is obviously one of them, the Grand Ballroom on the 5th floor of the downtown Sheraton. Reporting from New Orleans, I'm Brian Andrews, CBS 4 News.
Now let's get a check on exactly where Katrina is right now.
CBS 4 Chief Meteorologist Brian Norcross is live in weather control with a new advisory. Brian?
Ileana, perhaps a little bit of hopeful news. No guarantees, of course, but it looks like there are some changes underway in the structure of Katrina. We'll talk more about that in just a second. In any case, even if it does seem to be weakening a little, potentially weakening a little, it looks like a catastrophic event for some part there of the Gulf Coast, potentially for New Orleans. Now, let's go ahead and show you the numbers as of the brand new advisory. 27.6, 89.4, 160-mile-an-hour winds, although some debate at the National Hurricane Center on exactly what the winds are, because there is some conflicting information from the hurricane hunters and from the radar and from the other sources, from the satellite, for example. North-northwest at 10. Now, that's a bit of concern there. 10 miles an hour now as opposed to 13, because a slower moving storm is worse for New Orleans because there's more time to pile the water up into the area around the city. The pressure, an incredibly low 904 millibars, was 902 earlier, which was the 4th lowest pressure ever measured on land, on water, any time in our part of the world. 170 miles now south-southeast of the city of New Orleans. Now here's the future track. No significant change here. The storm still arriving at the coast early in the morning, arriving about the New Orleans level there in the track in the mid to late morning, and then moving on up into Mississippi, where it will continue to be a tremendous threat, tornado threat, and hurricane force winds well into Mississippi, and then spreading up through Ohio Valley and on into the Midwest and the Northeast, and even southern Canada is going to feel the effects of this storm as it dies out up that way. Now here's the satellite picture. Now I want you to watch closely here, and this is what I was talking about in terms of being a little bit hopeful. Perfect looking eye 12 hours ago, and look at the reds and purples solid around that eye. Now watch what happens as we go through the last 12 hours. Notice at the end here, the amount of color in the image is diminished. We also see a little bit of lighter colors in here. We see a little flattening over on the west side. But the thing is that these storms intermittently go through strengthening and weakening, strengthening and weakening. So it may just be going through a cycle. The hopeful thing is perhaps it will not intensify in that distance between where it is now and the coast, but no guarantee of that. Already the effects are being felt along the Gulf Coast. At New Orleans right now, the winds are sustained at 40 miles an hour and gusting to 48 at the airport in the city, and it's just going to get stronger and stronger as we go through the night. Now, we've talked about the vulnerability of the city of New Orleans. Well, our David Bernard has been doing the weather in New Orleans for 8 years or so now, and has just recently joined us. He's very familiar with the hurricane problem there, and he's here to talk about what makes New Orleans especially vulnerable. David?
Brian, this is the nightmare scenario that we've painted in New Orleans for decades, and in fact the city, ever since Hurricane Betsy in 1965, has been preparing for this very minute. And this is the setup. This is a look at New Orleans from up above out in space. This is Lake Pontchartrain, the huge body of water north of the city. This is the populated section of Metro New Orleans. That's the Mississippi River, and right below here, all this water is effectively, basically, where swampland meets the Gulf of Mexico. We're a city surrounded by water. Now we'll take a closer look at the city. This is the solution. They have built a hurricane levee protection area in red all around the city. Basically, it's like a castle and a moat, and you're building a wall around it to protect all that water from getting inside. And this has been going on for 40 years, and the city has never faced a test of this levee system until tonight. It'll be the first time a major hurricane directly strikes a city in 40 years. And we don't know how well these levees are going to hold up. They were engineered for a Category 3 storm. Now, why is New Orleans in such a spot? Because it's a bowl. Look at it this way. On one end of the city, that's Lake Pontchartrain. On the other end of the city, that's the Mississippi River. In between, that's New Orleans. And look, the elevation is lower than the sea level in most locations. So if the storm surge is high enough in Katrina to breach or overtop those levees, you're going to have huge amounts of flood water spill into the city. And there's no way to get that water out. And that's a disaster, as you could have several feet of water, maybe as much as 10 or 12 feet in some of the more low-lying areas, stuck in that city for days, perhaps weeks, because the pumping system that's there will be overcome by water and would not be able to get that water out. They might have to actually dynamite some of the levees to help drain the city. That is the situation New Orleans is in tonight, and one it has not faced of this magnitude in a long, long time. Brian.
All right, David, it's not just the water, am I correct? It's also the fact that the water will be mixed with sewage, because it'll turn into a septic tank. The whole thing will be contaminated. I understand that, right?
Oh, it's going to be a huge problem, and all the different fuels that'll be spilling and chemical leaks that could occur because of damage to all the industrial base there. And of course, there's a lot of refining activities that go along here in the port area of New Orleans, which is located right in this vicinity. And of course, backed up sewer lines, and you won't have water sanitized properly. It's going to create a real mess if, in fact, Katrina's storm surge does allow a breach in this levee system, or for that water to overtop the levees.
All right, David. David and I will be here beginning at 5 o'clock in the morning as all this happens right before us, so join us then. And David will be back with Tropical Depression number 13, which is formed today out in the Atlantic. We'll see that in just a few minutes.
Well, Brian, here at home, one of the most frustrating aspects of post-hurricane life is lack of electricity. 262,000 FPNL customers remain without power in Miami-Dade, 118,000 in Broward. CBS 4's Carrie Kahn is live in Kendall tonight with that story. Carrie?
Well, FPL's crews are working at all hours to try and restore power. That's what they're doing at Raul Orozco's home. Let's show you the situation here. He has power on his home, but not in his home. You can see this power pole precariously perched on the side of his house. And tonight across this neighborhood and some others in South Florida, there are signs of light. Here's something they haven't seen on Southwest 95th Street in a few days, working street lights. Florida Power and Light crews work night and day to get people out of the dark. For Raul Orozco, Hurricane Katrina left him with a costly reminder.
I came here and I saw that thing on top of my roof. The first thing that I thought was that thing that could explode.
Transformer and all came down, but luckily for Orozco, his home escaped relatively unscathed. Across Dade and Broward counties, power crews pulled another 16-hour day. In North Miami Beach, they repaired a main feeder line, allowing 2,000 people to once again turn on the lights. And folks in this Southwest Miami-Dade neighborhood on well water got creative.
Unfortunately, we got a swimming pool, so we wash in the swimming pool and we use the swimming pool water to use the toilets, to flush the toilets.
FPL promised Raul Orozco they would put in a temporary pole and remove this one. He just can't wait to get his power back.
Oh, that's a big relief. Can imagine these days without energy, no air conditioning, no water.
And FPL hopes to have 90% of the folks back with power on Tuesday, the remaining 10% back with power on Friday. Live in Kendall, Carrie Codd, CBS 4 News tonight.
It was another busy day at relief sites which have popped up around South Florida to give hurricane victims free ice and water. Our team coverage turns now to Art Barron, who's at the Orange Bowl relief site. Art?
And the Orange Bowl is where hundreds of people still left in the dark without electricity were handed bottles of water and bags of ice today. That was out on the south side of the stadium. Now, as we pan over here, you can see that we're here on the north side, and this is the staging area where tree cutters and linemen come for a hot meal. And now, while they were working, Miami residents took every last bottle of water and bag of ice given to them to get them through the next couple of days.
It's over, says a Miami police officer who handed out bottled water from this truck. Once packed full, it only took a little more than 3 hours to empty it. When the large semi first pulled up, it didn't take long for the word to get out. And how did you hear about this?
Over the radio, matter of fact.
As soon as the city of Miami announced it's handing out meals, water, and ice, hot and thirsty residents began showing up here at the Orange Bowl.
Especially since I'm taking care of a 90-year-old lady, and it's hot for both of us.
While intentions were good to hand out ice and water at the Metro Zoo, the long lines as far as the eye could see proved frustrating for many.
You know, that's way south. You know, I mean, you have issues with gas, and I suspect that if you get gas, I mean, if you get ice over there, by the time you get over here, it's a glass of water.
Now, other pickup points are making it more convenient. Ice and water handed out in the Dolphin Mall parking lot.
Hey, you're pretty strong. You're pretty strong, huh?
And the Orange Bowl becoming a relief site. It's smack in the middle of Miami where some just walked over.
We wanted to set up a location